Hello, welcome back to another pen talk. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to take a little side trip, and I blame WaskiSquirrel for getting me interested in Senator pens, and I loved watching that gold Bock nib on the vintage Senators and how wonderful it seemed to write. So I kept my eyes open on eBay, and I finally found this pen. It came from Serbia, which in the past I've been hesitant to buy from, but this seller got good reviews, and I liked the way that was described, and the package arrived relatively quickly. And the auction was, I think, a good price, and shipping was on the expensive side, but it got here quickly, it got here safely. So inside here is a leatherette pen case, and if we open it up, we'll see the pen. So my first responses are it's in pretty decent shape. I'm obviously going to clean up that oxidation on the clip, but it's all functional. It's all here. And it has a great ink window. It's a big ink window. And that's actually the whole ink reservoir, because the piston stops right at the end of that window. And it does have a nice nib. So I'm going to do my cleaning, get it ready for inking, and hopefully I'll be as happy as I expect to be based on what I've seen from a WaskiSquirrel. The pen was fairly clean. It probably had been polished. I don't think the pen has been used much. There was no ink at all in the nib and feed, which unscrewed from the barrel. I did clean up the clip. It came out nice as I expected it to. I think they used gold filled, and over time it will tarnish. Like I mentioned before, it's over usually some type of brass, so the copper atoms can migrate to the surface and oxidize and create a tarnish, but they cleaned up with not much of an effort. The nib also looks very nice. Looks like a good ebonite feed. The nib had great flow when I flushed it, so I'm expecting that to be exemplified in a very wet writer. And this I really didn't do much with. I just cleaned it up a little bit from some of the residue from the person who had cleaned it before I got it. And that ink window is extremely clean. That's what leads me to believe I don't think this pen may not even have been inked, but it certainly has not been inked much, and it was cleaned well when it was inked. Here we are with a comparison so you can get an idea of the size of the Senator pen. Next to it's M400, a pen that I bought new probably in the 80s, and it's been used quite a bit. It actually has teeth marks on it, which I shouldn't have done, but you know, hard to control sometimes. Here's your Pilot Metropolitan and your Pilot 78G, just to put things in perspective. Let's uncap them and look at the nib end. All these pens post very well, very deeply, very securely, and don't really affect the balance. And these are pens I probably would post. But let's zero in on the working end. These all have similar size nibs. For lack of an identifier, it's like a number 5 size nib. The M400 and the Senator have 14 karat gold nibs, and we'll see how the Senator writes shortly. But this is a soft nib, and I enjoyed this pen when it was a daily writer. The sections are similarly sized, except there's no flare out on the Senator, so it's a little bit different. You can move your fingers pretty much all through here, whatever's comfortable for you. And for reference, you know, the Pilot Metropolitan and 78G are here. These are definitely wider sections. The M400 is a little bit wider than the Senator, but they're, to me, good size, smaller pens. I wouldn't call them tiny pens, but if you got big hands and you like big pens, I don't think these would work for you. But I enjoy writing, and these all write well. I'd be remiss if I didn't compare my two Senator pens, which I think would be a good comparison. They may have been made around a similar time frame. Maybe this one was a little bit older, maybe this is a little bit newer. It's really hard to tell. You know, the designs are both retro classic in their own way. You know, this green shows up, at least in the camera, a lot more intensely than it does in real life. I don't know why the clip doesn't have any Senator on it. It seems to be a common marking that they've done on their pens, but who knows, from a design viewpoint or from a manufacturing viewpoint or whatever, it didn't have it. And of course, there's nothing on it that says it's a Senator, but I'm happy with it, and I put it in at least the Senator family. Both of these are pens that post well. I think they're designed to write with posted. You know, some pens are, some pens aren't. Some pens it's an afterthought or not a thought at all. Both of these pens have very nice ink windows, large ink windows, so it's easy to see how much ink is in the pen. Different sections and obviously different nibs, but the steel nib writes great, and it's labeled Senator, and the gold nib writes phenomenally, and that just is a 14 karat Bock nib. Both of these pens are writer's pens, and that's one of the things that I enjoy about them, and I think WaskiSquirrel does too. One thing these pens do share in common is the feed is very similar between these two pens, which again would go for that Bock nib in both of them, one labeled, one with the Senator on it, and one with just the goat. So I decided to put this ink in the pen. It's a nice green ink, and it is a German ink, so hopefully it will like being inside of the German Senator pen. Enough futzing around. Let's put this nib to paper. This pen is light. We'll give you those weights. It does fit in the hand without posting, and that is a nice section. I'd like it to be a millimeter or two more in diameter, but it's usable. My fingers touch, but they don't overlap. Those threads just don't, you don't feel at all. And it does post deeply, and that cap is light, so it doesn't change the weight. And I would probably write with this posted. It feels good, it feels balanced. So I'm extremely happy with this nib. I mean, this is like almost an orgasmic writing experience. It just feels great on the paper. You don't need any pressure for it to really put down a nice line, and that is on the fine side. And if you push it, it gets to be maybe a 2B. I wouldn't say I'd push it to the 3B that the seller of the pen said you could do, but this is just a great nib. So I'm really happy that Wasky turned me on to these, and I was able to get one. I haven't written with any modern Bock gold nibs, but I can't imagine them to be as good as this vintage one is. So I generally don't rate vintage pens, but I think this one deserves to be rated. I zoomed in a little too much. I'm going to give it a 9.6. So people have asked me to explain the rating, and to me that kind of takes some of the mystery out of it. Really what the rating to me is it's a relative scale based on my experience with the pen. So if you liked a pen that I rated it at 9 and you get another pen that I rated as a 9, you'd probably find there's some similarities between them. I give it a 9.6 because this nib is just extraordinary. So, great pen. I'm glad I got a chance to get one. It's going to be writing a lot of letters because this is that type of pen that really encourages me to put my thoughts on paper and send them to others. So hopefully you've enjoyed this look at an interesting pen that I would not have looked at if it wasn't for another YouTube reviewer that I tend to follow and watch. So we've reached the end of this video. So may you too find a pen that excites you, that makes you go, ooh, or wow, or any of those exemplatory words. You know, put some ink on paper, you know, enjoy doing it. There are some discussions about how that encourages and works with some of your thinking processes, but, you know, hey, I do it because I enjoy it, and I've enjoyed it for a long period of time. So we've reached the end of this video, so bye for now. Have a great day. Enjoy your life, and you got to keep that nib on the paper for it to write. You know, haven't found a nib yet that won't write if not on the paper. And this ink combo is working well. It's a really nice dark green.